Ladies and gentlemen, today on the program, The Lawyer Drummer. Talking dreams, gratitude, and thriving in two careers with entertainment lawyer and One Bad Son drummer Kurt Dahl. I'm going to apologize up front for some of the audio quality in this episode. It's all a work in progress, kids. Hey, Denny, roll intro. Hello, you're listening to the John Huff podcast. Oh, yay. London is the biggest small town in Canada.
Yeah, people say the same about Saskatoon, so there you go.
Do they really? Yeah, because we're about 350,000. And so we get a lot of touring bands coming through and stuff happening. But you're right. You walk downtown and you feel like you could be in any small town, any place.
I love it. Yeah, that's how Sebastian is, for sure.
All right. Sorry, go ahead.
And so, are you from London? Is that kind of your hometown?
I'm not from London. I'm actually from a little town called Owen Sound, Ontario.
Yeah.
And you'll know that also as the hometown of our mutual friend Dave Benedict of the band Default, right?
That's where he's from. Hey, holy moly!
Dave and I played together on the Killer Chickens high school soccer team, which was the worst high school soccer team in Ontario at the time, probably. It was really funny because I went to a football school, right? And so all the super jock guys played football, and all the metalheads played soccer because we liked getting out of class a couple times a week early to go play soccer matches. And so the team was awful, but there were all these metalhead dudes on the bus just listening to whatever was happening, Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and stuff. And so we had a ball, but we were awful. And, Dave went on to become a superstar bass player, and you know how that goes.
Yeah. And the rest is history.
Oh, yeah. It's history, man, for sure. So,
that's a small world.
It's, well, you know what? The Canadian music scene is a kind of a small world.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Yeah. So, I've pressed record. We're into this thing now, man.
All right, we're doing it.
And thanks so much for agreeing to come on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. It's an honor, man. When I get asked to do these things, I take it as an honor.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll take that as an honor. So we're talking with Kurt Dahl, who, by appearances, has it all. He is drummer for a prominent touring rock band. He is a successful entertainment lawyer, wife, 2 kids, and now vanity plates on his car.
Well, yeah, that makes me complete,
I don't know, dude. It sounds like you're getting civilized.
Well, is that ever possible for a drummer?
Well, people would say not, but we both know, as Dave Grohl said, that everybody's band would suck without us, right?
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I've got you on here because this is a show about people who are chasing the dream, living the dream, doing unconventional things successfully. And it's a show where we demonstrate to people that it's possible to do those things. And you are absolutely doing that, man. I don't know how you figured it out, but you figured it out.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate the kind words. And, I feel like, looking back at let's say the last decade, because that's where sort of the music and the law stuff came together. It's like, I didn't have some big master plan, that I was going to do, become this lawyer, drummer, whatever, right? I mean, it just sort of, all I knew was I just love music, and that music is my life, and that whatever I was doing, it had to be involved with music, and that the law thing sort of that's why I went to law school. Is I read so many books about my idols. I read so many rock and roll biographies, and all my idols were screwed over by a contract or by someone in a suit, and I felt like if I could go to law school, become a lawyer, at least would, prevent my own band and maybe my friends' bands from the same fate,
That's amazing. I was going to ask you if law school was always in the plan. It never even occurred to me that you went to law school to be able to protect yourself and your friends.
Yeah, well, it was, in law school is interesting, there's some of the most amazing people I've met, like just super intelligent, generous, people that want to change the world, and then there was also, the stereotypical douchebag lawyers, and it was like, I didn't, like, some people knew they wanted to be a lawyer from like age 5 or something, and that was never me. And some people, like, their parents were lawyers and whatever. It was sort of like they were meant to become a lawyer. And that was never me. I knew I wanted to become a rock star. That's the only thing I knew from about high school onwards. And, I was the guy in law school that was, I stood out like a sore thumb, with long hair and sideburns and, never dressed up to go to school. I mean, some people actually did sort of dress like lawyers when they were in school, which I thought was kind of crazy.
Douchebags.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just sort of like, I got into law school and finished, I did all right. And after law school, I was like, I'm not going to become a lawyer. I wanted to just, that's right around the time that One Bad Son started. So I was like, I'm going to take my time now and go become a rock star. And it just happened to take about 12 years more than I thought it would, and so I took a couple years off and just did the band thing for a while. And then, I guess sort of came back to the law once I decided to do a master's on sort of the topic of how the internet is changing the music biz.
Interesting. Okay. So I'm trying to piece a timeline together here. This is mid 2000s-ish that you finished law school?
Yeah, you nailed it. So 2005. And I just remember I took a couple of years off and just sort of didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't play music. And then I kept seeing all these huge changes happening. And you'll recall, like, around that time was like Napster and LimeWire and all these, downloading programs that were really like totally changing the music biz. And of course, now the biz is so different from what it was, in the CD era.
Yeah.
And everyone's just talking all these, doomsday sort of predictions about how it's going to affect the music biz and blah, blah, blah. And so that's when it sort of just it dawned on me. It's like, I should write something, I should combine my two passions, which is like, I love studying the law. I thought it was really interesting to study, and music, and that's with this whole downloading thing and, how the copyrights in songs, their value is changing as the whole industry shifts. And that's why I did the master's on that. And that was sort of the beginning of combining those two worlds, law and music, and, seeing where I fit in with those two things combined,
Yeah, absolutely. It's, it's always been a reality that it's hard to make a living solely as a musician. I know a few people who do it. I'm lucky enough to play with a couple of them, but I would say more so than ever. You might disagree with me on this, actually, but it feels like more so than ever, it's hard to make a living as a musician. And so having a day job sounds really awful to most of us. But in fact, you're proving that you don't need to fear the day job, that this can actually work perfectly, right?
Yeah, well, in hindsight, it did work out really well. And every day is like, it's still in the process of working out. Like, it's not like I've just like, I never feel like I've quote unquote like made it, but, I work my ass off and I have 2 jobs that I love. So I feel like in that way I've made it. But, every day it's like, I'm in the process of making it, I guess, is what I'd say. But I think you're right. I do agree with you. It's tougher than ever to make a living doing music. And for me, that's partly based on the fact that no one is, or that there's, unless you're willing to tour. Like touring is kind of pretty much the only way you can make a living doing music. You know, there's exceptions. There's people that just write songs, and that's amazing if you can do that for a living, like probably in Nashville or LA or whatever, but just writing songs for other people. I mean, that's amazing if you can carve out a living that way. And there's some people who just, you know, have their songs placed in film and TV and that sort of thing, and they never tour. But by and large, as you and I know very well, the people that are making a living as a musician are the ones that are on the road. You're the road dogs. And if that's your thing and you love being on tour, then awesome. Like, and then you have to be prepared to be on the road all the time. But yeah, for a lot of people, like touring 300 days of the year maybe isn't feasible. You know, for some it is, and that's awesome, and all the power to you. But for others, yeah, it's like I see a lot of people having, as the kids say, a side hustle these days. You know, and I think it's just a reality of the modern biz. It's like you sort of have to, as a musician in 2019, you have to like diversify is the word I'd use. Like, do other things to make a living. And I've seen it's kind of cool to see that, you know, musicians are some of the smartest people that I know, and so like they're good at diversifying and doing other things. So maybe it's like a little bit of touring, a little bit of writing for other people, a little bit of maybe some sort of other art, whatever it be, painting or what, acting or who knows what, and then maybe they teach a bit of guitar lessons here and blah blah blah. Like you sort of stack up 4 or 5 different things, and you've got like a full-on career that you can live off of. You know, it's just it's different than the let's become a rock star like Motley Crue or something in the 80s. You know, like there still is those exceptions, but by and large, I feel like musicians have to work harder than they ever did.
You're absolutely right. And the people I know who are managing to do this all seem to have multiple pots that they're in, you know? And over the last couple of years, I've become kind of a sideman guy. So I play and I tour with a bunch of different people. And for the most part, they all have other things. You know, I play with one guy who's a visual artist, and he has a little studio, and he does t-shirts, and he does duping for people. So it's like you have to have all these different little baskets, especially as an indie artist. But people are figuring that out, which is actually really cool to watch. And I'm sort of doing that too. I do publicity, and I am a writer, so I do corporate assignments and that kind of thing. It's really strange. Right. I think a lot of people coming into the industry, coming into any field of the arts, probably sort of look at the highest level of it and think that's what it is. So they're going to be, we'll use Motley Crue as the example, we're going to be at the highest level touring, when the practical reality is probably you're not, but you don't have to freak out. It's possible to build other income streams around that and still make it work perfectly fine, right?
Yeah, that's a great point, John. And I would say the silver lining on this is, so maybe there's less, you know, let's stick with that example. There's less like Motley Crues in the world. Like there's less musicians that just become millionaires. But I mean, even in the 80s, 70s, whatever, that was still pretty rare. But when you did make it big, I would suggest that your career wasn't as much in your hands as it is now. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like with you and I, and like I said, all the musicians that we know that are making it work, it's like they're their own boss. And that's, you know, when you're a rock star and all your money's coming through from a record label, you're not really in control of your life, because it's sort of like it's being run by all these other, you know, the big machine of the major label industry, you know, whereas I think now it's like, so maybe it's not as lucrative as it was, but it's more in your control. And to me, I'd take that any day.
Yeah,
you know?
Just because you had the big major label deal doesn't necessarily mean you saw any of that money either. Right?
Yeah, and that's a good point. There's so many horror stories like you sell a million records and you make like $10,000 and you divide that with 4 guys or something. You know, it's like let's face it, they're crooks, and the more I thought they were crooks before I became a lawyer, and now that I've become a lawyer, and now that I actually see sort of the inner workings of major labels, I think they're more crooks than I thought when I first started. Like they're the big bad major label is not just it's not a misconception. It's the real deal.
Are you familiar with the band King's X?
Yes.
All right. So King's X is my favorite band ever, and and they just released a book, The Oral History of King's X. And if you're listening out there and you don't know the band, you should start knowing them. Anyways, their whole story, you should read the book, man, because if you don't really know their story, it's so much up your alley about this band that just couldn't seem to sell records, and they were on a major, and the money they had coming in, management was taken from them, and it's a really kind of a heartbreaking story, actually. But just put it on your reading list, the King's X Oral History.
Okay, I will. Yeah, I think I remember hearing something that, or when I hear the band name, I think of, like them getting ripped off by a label. So I think I've heard maybe just in passing or something a bit about them and how the system sort of dealt them a tough hand. Which,
in some ways.
I mean,
yeah, in some ways.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was just an aside, but. How does it work for the rest of the guys in your band? You're a lawyer. What are those guys doing during the downtime?
Yeah, so Shane is a really talented artist, like a visual artist. So he does a lot of drawing and that sort of stuff. And so he's now selling that, so you can, commission him to like make a custom piece of art for like your company or just for your living room or whatever, which is really cool. And then, the other guys kind of work day jobs, right? This our guitar player, he paints. Like his family has painted houses for years, so he does that. Of course, he'd rather be rocking, But yeah, so it's you sort of, and that's the thing I've noticed too as a band. It's like there's so much downtime, So you do it, you record an album, do a bunch of touring. Inevitably there's going to be some downtime, so sometimes you got to come back and do some work and pay the bills, but yeah, so it's, and I just, and that's where I feel, and I tell my bandmates this all the time, I feel super lucky that like what I get to do is something I'm super passionate about, and that's help other bands, right? Like help other artists with whether it's negotiating a record deal or getting their song in a film and TV placement or whatever. I mean, like every day I get to, like, I feel it when I'm doing the band stuff, I'm living my dream, and when I'm doing the law stuff, I'm helping others live their dream. So in doing that, it's like that's also like my dream, right? Like I'm lucky I've got two jobs that I consider like my passions, and some people struggle to find one.
Absolutely. So how do you guys do it? How do you schedule these things? How do you make it work? Because, you go out, you guys kind of tend to tour in chunks, right?
Yeah, so in terms of how do I balance like with the work stuff?
How do you schedule with your job? How do you schedule with the rest of the guys? I know even at my level, it's hard to find time when four dudes or four people, whatever, can actually go and do that.
Yeah, totally. Well, so I'm lucky. So for me, on the entertainment law side, like I don't work in an office. I work from home. My laptop is my office. I always say that, and it's true. So, when I'm on tour, it doesn't matter. I work for the back of the tour bus, and work away drafting contracts and negotiating. And, that's, as you know very well, it's like there's lots of hours on the road where you're just sitting in the van or the bus and driving along. So, sometimes I actually can get more work done when I'm on tour than when I'm home, because I don't have two kids running around, and I don't have to make supper, get groceries and that kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, sometimes it's a challenge. It'll be, we're in the middle of a 6-week tour with Sebastian Bach in the U.S., and all of a sudden one of my clients gets like a huge record deal, and I got to negotiate it. So some days I just don't get much rest or much, the rest of the guys are like chilling in the van, having a nap, or, having a beer at the hotel and I'm like working away,
Right.
you know, but I would be a complete fool to complain because it's like, I love it. And I'm also on tour and, you know, making money from the
Right.
law side. So it's like, it helps just keep everything going, you know?
Did you get to hang out a lot with Sebastian Bach?
Not a ton. No, he's an interesting guy. I mean, he's kind of like, I would imagine like what you think he'd be like. That's what he is. So he was a bit of a diva. You know, like he's an 80s rock star and who's making, you know, trying to make it, you know, coming to terms with reality in 2018 when the tour was. So it's like, sometimes you got little glimpses that he's definitely an 80s rock star.
But
you
it
know?
was still like legit sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was like the end almost of that, right? When Skid Row was happening.
Yeah, so his vibe now, you know, he's married and his wife was on the bus for like half the tour, and so there wasn't like the sex and drugs so much. Well, there was lots of he smokes a lot of weed, like he's a chronic. So he's not doing needles and stuff, but he's smoking weed like nonstop. And then yeah, we went on his bus one time and just like it was like a Cheech and Chong scene where you open the door and just the smoke flows out. Yeah, and he's cranking Kiss. Like Kiss is his all-time favorite band. So I knew that if I just dropped a few Kiss like rare like B-side sort of song references, he'd love me. And it was true, you know, like just name drop a couple of Kiss B-sides.
Sweet.
And he loves red wine, and I love wine. So we talked a bit of wine, talked a bit of Kiss, you know, and that was pretty much it. So, and then we went on the bus once, and that happened to be in Texas, and it was in some city where Dimebag's ex-wife, or like wife, I guess, his widow lived. So she came on the bus, and I didn't know her backstory. I didn't know it was even Dimebag's wife, but she was just walked in and just loud and over the top. It was just like party time when she came on the bus. So it was kind of cool. We talked about Dimebag, and everyone, like Bach was tearing up because he loved Pantera. Right. So it was kind of a cool connection.
Wow. There's such amazing stuff that happens on the road, you know?
Yeah, that's an understatement.
I haven't toured a lot, but I've toured a little, and you know, even just the little bits that I've done, it's that really cool kind of behind the scenes stuff that I find almost more interesting than the shows. Almost, it's just these stories that come out are really fun.
Yeah.
What about Def Leppard? Tell us about Def Leppard.
Well, that was the first time we'd ever toured arenas, and that was so I would say it's still my favorite tour to date because it's just, you know, that's when you started playing. Like I started playing. Well, I was late to the game. I started playing drums in grade 12, so I was quite late to the party. But yeah, it's, you know, it's just how it worked out. But you know, that's what you envision, right? Like I always thought if I could play arenas, like that's of course when you made it. And you know, especially playing like the arena in Saskatoon, like I've seen so many bands there, AC/DC and Kiss and like all these massive bands, Pearl Jam. So just to play in that same arena, my hometown arena, to a sold out show, and you know, just hear the crowd, like it was pretty amazing. And the Def Leppard guys were like the nicest guys. You know, ahead of the tour, we'd heard like, you know, you always hear these sort of rumors and stuff and feel like, wow, I don't know if the Def Leppard guys are that nice, or you got to be careful when you're on tour with them, blah, blah. It was totally unfounded. Like they were the sweetest guys. I love talking music with people because I can relate with anyone on music because I know a lot about music. It's my life, right? So like I knew ahead of time that Joe Elliott, the singer, was a big fan of Mott the Hoople and Ian Hunter, and I've got like all the records. So, you know, the one time I had a chance, he's walking in the hallway, I just said, "Hey Joe," and just, "Hey, I heard you're a fellow Ian Hunter fan," and he stopped right away, and it's just like sort of you just tell, like all of a sudden he just like we're talking to like friends, you know. Sort of the whole image and the whole facade, like it melted away, and we're just like talking music. So we Chatterley and Hunter, and yeah, like those are the moments, like you said, that are like, I remember that as much as any of the shows on that tour, because for like 10 minutes I was talking music with a legend,
Joe
you know.
Elliott. I love it, man. I love it. How do those tours happen? What was the process of actually getting on those tours with Bach and with Def Leppard, etc.?
Well, if I'll paraphrase Leonard Cohen, if I knew how they happened, I'd make it happen more, you know, because I would want to just do arena tours all the time, opening for big bands. But I mean, the way it happens is like, it took us 12 years and a bunch of hits at radio to kind of like even be considered for the job. But then, as you know, from a practical standpoint, it's like we get submitted by our booking agent, and then the Def Leppard camp or the Bach camp or whatever, their management or maybe even the artists themselves actually listen to the music and give it a thumbs up or thumbs down. So I think with Def Leppard, yeah, it was like a last minute thing. I think we got home from our own tour like on the Thursday, and we'd been gone for like a month or whatever, and we're excited to get home to our girls and our families, and we got a phone call from our manager on the Thursday saying, we just got the Def Leppard tour, we leave on Monday.
Wow. How long was that tour?
I think it was 10 dates, so not long. It was like maybe 2 weeks or whatever.
Well, it doesn't take long to go across Canada, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was just from Winnipeg west too, so it was just Western Canada, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the best feeling, man. Like I felt sometimes you try to act like, oh, it's not a big deal, whatever.
Right.
But when we got on stage, I remember hitting my kick drum for the first time in an arena, and it's just like a bomb going off, you know, and it's like gave me chills, like the old arm hair standing up sort of feeling, you know.
It's that big YC drum company kick.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's the best feeling, man. That's what you get into it for, is like that, those moments where you feel like a kid again. Like, that's why I love rock and roll.
Yeah.
It gives me that innocence. It keeps me innocent, you know. And it's like when I finally watched Bohemian Rhapsody like 2 nights ago, and I was just like grinning the whole time, because like, this is what I love about rock and roll. This is why rock and roll is, in my mind, the greatest art form there is.
Wow.
Because it just makes you feel something that nothing else can, you know. And it's a weird time for rock and roll. 2019. It's not like rock and roll is very big with the kids and with whatever. And it's like, I don't get that, but that's a whole other aside. But anyways, yeah, I forget what I was saying, but rock and roll is the greatest.
Well, we're just talking about playing big rooms like that. I have not had the pleasure of an arena gig yet. I've played some bigger rooms and some festivals and stuff, but not an arena yet. Hopefully someday. Yeah,
it's special, man. It's awesome.
It's you know, rumors of rock and roll's demise are greatly exaggerated in my mind, you know, because
true.
When Steel Panther comes to London, they pack out that London Music Hall, my friend. So, hey.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, rock and roll, it's, you know, I think it goes in phases, right? Like, it's like, you know, the 80s is big with like hair metal, and then not early 90s was huge with like Seattle and all that stuff that I love. And then, you know, late 90s it became smaller, you know, it's more like boy bands kind of took over and whatever. It comes and goes, right? And well, if you look at, you know, Bohemian Rhapsody was like the biggest movie of the year or whatever, so there you go, right?
Right, absolutely. What's it like being away now? I mean, you got 2 kids at home now. What's it like being away for 4, 5, 6 weeks?
Yeah, it's tough, man. There's no two ways about it. Like, that Bach tour, yeah, it was 6 weeks, and you know, my daughter was like 3 weeks old, I think, when we left.
Wow.
And yeah, it was like, you know, and it's kind of a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. It's like, when you have kids, it just, touring becomes such a different thing, you know.
Yeah.
I miss them like crazy, and for me, I don't want, like, the desire to go on long tours is not there anymore. Like, I like to, you know, ideally go on shorter tours or whatever, right? It's because you want to be there for your kids. Like they mean more than anything else.
Yeah.
And you're missing out on those moments. Like it's tough, right? So you sort of tell yourself you're doing it for them, right? Like you're doing all these good things and getting your career to the next level because you want a good career and stuff and a good future for your kids, right? So,
right.
But I mean, it makes it super tough for sure.
I think, in a way, you're also teaching your kids that it's okay to go for things, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's something, especially these days, where it's like it's teaching that I work my ass off to achieve my dream, and yeah, you got to go for it, like you said. Otherwise, what is it to life?
I think. I mean, I'm not a parent. I'm guessing, but I feel like your kids, even though you got to be away sometimes, would rather see their father still chasing what he loves and what he wants instead of, consigning himself to a job someplace that he hates or, doing it for the kids. I feel like when you are still living that life, when you are home, you're a more authentic you. You're a better you, So
true. Yeah.
Your
so
time,
true.
The quality might be better than if you decided to give up doing this. And while in your case, it's slightly skewed because if you gave up music, you'd still be doing the entertainment lawyer thing. And giving up music doesn't mean never playing music again either. It just means maybe curbing it in some way. But I just feel like if you're doing your thing and you're doing it for the right reasons, that's a better example than giving up on your thing. That's what it seems like to me.
No, you're so right, man. Like, and I've seen those parents that are just like, you see them at the playground or wherever, or at events, like they just stare at their phone. They're not engaged with their kids,
right.
And those parents, yeah, sure, they don't go on international tours, but they're home all the time, but they're not really present, and that thing when I get back from the tour, like I am the most badass dad you'll meet, 'cause I'm so excited to be home and just be present, right? Be there with my kids and interact with them and get down on all fours and be playing, like, it's like be a real dad, right? That's
yeah.
So you're so right. It makes me appreciate so many things, right? And I think when I chat with other touring musicians, it's a common theme. It's like when you go on tour, it's a lot of sacrifice, it's a lot of hard work, but it also makes you grateful. It makes you present and makes you appreciate all the sacrifices you're making and what it's for, right? And it makes you like not just be disconnected with the world,
Yeah, you go away, you miss things, There are certain things that you miss experiencing, whereas if you perhaps never go away, those things you can take them for granted, really,
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. But I know it's hard. I don't even have kids and I know it's hard.
Yeah, exactly. You can feel my pain. And
you are fortunate enough to have a family that supports that, which is that's a pretty valuable thing.
Yeah, totally. It's that's one thing I realized. It's like when you see, even the successes we've had as a band, how much work goes into it, how much sacrifice, right? It's been 15 years as a band. We've had some great successes over the years, and anytime someone's like, you guys, anytime someone gives us a compliment as a band or whatever, or music, it really means a lot to me because I know what it took to get there. You know what I mean? It's like no one can take that away from us. Like we worked our ass off for this band and sacrificed so much. No one can take that away from us.
No
you know
way.
What I mean? But when I see other bands too, like Glorious Sons, for example, like they're just killing it around the world.
Yep.
And they're on tour like 300 days a year. And I'm just like, good for you guys. Like, cause I know how much sacrifice it takes. People just see the successes. They see, oh, you guys are rolling for the Rolling Stones. Like, man, that must just be like, what an easy life you have, And it's like, well, no, it's the opposite. It's all about sacrifice and not having a normal life. Like, and
people.
Yeah. So
Sorry, go ahead.
So anytime I see a band that's like done bigger things than us, I'm like, you guys deserve it, because I know how much it took to get where even we are. You know what I mean?
People don't see that 2-hour drive in the winter to that little town where you set up and play for nobody and get paid nothing and drive back home and get there at 4 a.m, you know? And people don't see that, but that's the reality for almost everybody who ever makes it. And for all the people who don't make it, you know, who don't get that payoff in the end. But that's what it is. And you have to love that. You have to learn to love that, even that awful drive when you play for nobody. It's a weird thing about musicians who go for it. They're in some ways strange people to put up with that.
They're insane. We're all insane by definition, because, you know, or at least incredibly irrational, you know. And you need that. You need to be irrational if you want to go into the arts, because the pursuit of music, for example, it's totally irrational. You know, you can easily go get a regular job, make a lot more money, have a predictable future ahead of you.
Yeah.
But instead, guys like you and I and everyone else out there that we know who really pursued it, like, they pursue this path that we know it's going to be way more difficult. There's no guarantee of anything. It's a whole bunch of sacrifice. It's like, it's totally irrational, and that's the beauty of it, right? That's what makes it so special, is that you're chasing something that means more than just like dollar amounts, you know, or it's, you know, it's something, some sort of higher thing you're going after, right? And that's what makes it special. That's what makes it sort of magical.
And then if and when the payoff comes, it's that much sweeter, right?
Yeah, I try to think of these things anytime we're having like some big successful event. Like, I remember the Def Leppard tour, for example. Like, I remember before we went on stage every night, we'd have a warm-up routine sort of in the band room, and I would think of the early days, like in 2006, when we were writing songs, living in a band house together, and no one gave a fuck about who we were. Yeah. You know, no one wanted to hear our songs. They weren't that good. They were shitty songs. and I think of all those hours and hours and hours of playing, and the early shows that no one came to because no one cared and we weren't that good. I think of all those hard times anytime we're doing like a big good time, you know, because it just makes me, it's humbling, and it also makes me just really be grateful and appreciate the hell out of it.
That's so important. So important. Some people lose that, and it's nice when you meet somebody who's made it and is kind of at that level, and they're actually still humble, down to earth. You know what I mean? I was lucky enough to hang around backstage at a Steven Tyler concert a couple of years ago in Toronto.
Oh, really?
Through a weird set of circumstances, I wound up working at the show in the VIP area.
Okay. How was it?
It was amazing. So my friend Jen, who is a singer from Hiroshima Hearts, which is the band I was in with her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We opened for you guys a couple times in London. That's how I connected with you. And Jen knew somebody who ran the Steven Tyler meet and greets. And so they said, we need 2 people to come and work this meet and greet. And somehow Jen and I wound up being those people. So we drove down to Toronto, and we're, you know, wristbanding people, and these 58-year-old women are fainting because they're about to meet Steven Tyler, right? And so we let the people in, and then they had a little bar set up. So what happens is you go in and you meet Steven Tyler in one room, and then you come out and you faint in the room that I was in charge of, right? So Jen was in the room with Steven Tyler, amazing, and he's doing all the things, meeting the people, and then the ladies are coming to me to get their drink tickets, and are all like shaking. I can't believe this. It was really funny. And so we got done all that, and that's wonderful. And then the lady in charge said, "Are you guys planning to stay for the show?" And we said, "Sure, why not?" And so she whips out 2 full access backstage passes. Here you go.
No.
Right? So it was at the Sony Center in Toronto, which used to be the Hummingbird Center, which is a really nice little room. Well, not little, it's like 2,000. And so I stood side stage and watched this show. And like Steven Tyler kept coming around and like high-fiving everybody and whatever. And I stood, his drummer is Sarah Tomek. I don't know if you know Sarah Tomek or not.
Yeah.
She's fabulous. And so I intend to get her on this program, actually. Anyways, I
Nice.
stood 5 feet away from Sarah Tomek and watched her play this whole show, which, what an education that was, right? And,
she's a killer.
And so that's fine. The show's great. And then we're backstage, and Steven Tyler is backstage. And you would think he would be protected back there, but he's Steven Tyler. Everywhere he goes, people want a piece of him, right? So whoever managed to be back there was hanging around trying to get to Steven Tyler. And I made a beeline for Sarah Tomek so I could talk to her. But all these people are gathered around Steven Tyler, and it was like the last show of this leg of the tour. They've been out for I don't know how many weeks. He's just done a gig. He's tired. And that guy was so gracious to everybody. It was amazing. He was shaking everybody's hand. He's hugging people. He's having a good time. His handlers had to like pull him away. Like, Steve, we got to go. It's time to go. And he's like, sorry, everybody. This is backstage. It's not out front. And and if anybody has earned the right to be kind of a self-important jerk backstage, it's Steven Tyler. And he was not. He was so gracious. It was really inspiring. And I thought, if I'm ever a rock star like Steven Tyler, I'll be nice to people too. But so far that hasn't happened. But
well,
go ahead.
You make a great point, John. Like, I feel like some of the most successful musicians that I've toured with are the ones that are the nicest. You know, there's like, you know, example, Rob Halford, you know, Judas Priest is like the nicest guy. Came to our dressing room and called us all by name, which I think he must have just read the Wikipedia page.
Amazing. Wow.
But like, you know, Rob Halford doesn't need to waste effing time and to do research on some opening band, but he did it. And I was like, holy jeez. And then, yeah, you hear like guys like Flea, who are just like the most down to earth, like sweet people. And like I mentioned, the Def Leppard guys, super nice. So I think it's the people that sort of, yeah, you're right, keep that sort of sense of gratitude and almost like that childlike quality, you know, in terms of, you know, viewing the world with wonder. I think those are the ones that can stay happy and stay humble and grateful, you know. And then and then you see a lot of people that just get jaded by the music biz, and that's, I mean, you kind of got that vibe a bit from Bach, you know, which is sort of like he'd seen it all and wasn't very happy, you know. But yeah, you see both, right? It's sort of one or the other extreme, you know, either super grounded and just the nice people, or like kind of a complete dick, you know.
It's good to be able to remember where you came from, I think. And I've watched you guys. We've opened for you a couple times, and I've seen the way you guys interact with the fans, and it's really great. And I don't know, maybe that's a Canadian thing, but they're Canadian jerks too. But I've watched you guys do it. You know, you practice what you preach, which is great.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
So what's next for One Bad Son? What's going on?
Well, so right now we're, you know, sort of for 10 years, really, we've just been going hard, like, you know, record an album, release it, tour like crazy, and then do it all again. And we just, you know, right now we're sort of just taking a step back from that and spending a few months just decompressing and writing some songs and seeing what happens next. Like we're all of a sudden now without a record label, like we're free agents in that regard, which is sort of freeing. So I think right now, I mean, we'll take some time off and write some songs and maybe just release like one song at a time for the next little while and see what happens. And yeah, go from there. I think it's like we're 15 years in, so it's like, I mean, we're not going anywhere, but we're also not just gonna jump right back in and release an album and go tour for another couple of years. You know, it's like, I think we want to just see what the next phase looks like for us, and ultimately that comes down to the music, right? And I think we want to write the best songs of our career and make sure we get, you know, make sure they're well written before they get released.
Maybe it's time for you to start your own label, huh?
Yeah, you know, it's not a bad idea. It's something we've talked about. You know, I've done it for a lot of clients, so I know how to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
We've talked about it for sure. So yeah, One Bad Son Records may not be too far away.
OBS Records, I like it.
Yeah.
So I've got 3 questions that I like to ask everybody in closing on these interviews. If you're cool, I'll ask them to you.
Okay.
So, as this is kind of a personal development podcast, I always ask everyone, what are you working on about yourself these days?
That is a great question. I love it. I think for me, right now, it's like working on gratitude, because I feel like I'm a grateful person, and if I, compared to most people, but at the same time, I feel like you just sort of, the nature of life, especially, if you got a busy life, is you just get you're always just focusing on the next thing, right? Just moving on to the next thing. So a good example is we had this thing, I had a big success happen on the law side of things, that leading up to the success, I spent a lot of time stressing about how's this deal going to turn out? Can I get the right deal for my client? Blah, blah. So spent this time stressing. And then when the success happened, I spent way less time acknowledging the success. You know what I mean? I spent a lot of effort stressing on focusing on negative things. And then when the actually success happened, I hardly spent any time celebrating it, or acknowledging it.
Yeah.
So it's and I think that's human nature, right? It's you spend, or if 9 people say you're amazing and 1 person says you suck, you focus on that one. That's just human nature.
Yeah.
So just focusing on that, I think that's something I'm working on, is just really acknowledging the successes, feeling grateful for them, and just start doing I don't do a gratitude journal or anything like that, but I try to, when I go to sleep at night, kind of think of things that I'm grateful for in the day, and
that's great.
It seems like such a simple thing, and everyone says you should do it, but when you actually start doing it, it's it does make a big difference. You notice it every day.
That's awesome, man. That's great. Question number 2 is, what are you most excited about right now?
Well, right now, I mean, this is a typical dad answer, but I'm crazy about my kids. They're just, the ages they're at are just 10 months and 3 years. And I'm just, every day I'm just super. Oh,
I'm still here.
Oh, what was that?
Sorry. My phone just lit up. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. And then excited to be a dad, excited to write new music. Yeah, I feel excited for spring. It's
No
been
doubt.
minus 50 here. Yeah, this time of year, it's I feel excited about everything. It's just we got through this big freeze, and it's
you did
metaphorically
it.
and literally, yeah.
That's awesome. Final question. What message do you give to my audience, Kurt Dahl?
Well, I would say, especially because the people that are listening are probably creative people.
Yes.
I would say chase your dreams, or someone will hire you to chase theirs. And that's kind of been my life, I could have easily become a quote unquote regular lawyer and work for someone else, and would have been a lot more predictable and probably, that easier financially for years,
Yeah.
But I didn't. I just chose my own path, because that's the only path that allowed me to just be me, right? And that's, I wouldn't change that for the world. I feel if you're not doing something you love, then I feel you a little bit of your soul gets taken away every day.
I totally agree.
And I know that because I've worked jobs that I hate, and I feel a little bit here and there, a bit of my soul was taken away, and you only have so much soul, man. So you gotta hold on to it. So, yeah, don't be afraid to chase your dreams, because it's what else is there in life,
I hear you. All right, man, I'm going to let you go. Thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, John. It's great chatting with you, man. And keep me posted. Let me know when it's released or whatever. And if you need me to send you any photos or whatever, just let me know. I'm happy to help.
I will do that. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, John. Appreciate it.
All right, cheers, man. See you later.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye. So there you have it. Yes, you can be a touring musician or artist and still make it work with a second career. I want to thank Kurt Dahl again for being on today's show. If you want to know more about my guests, go to john-huff.com. That's JOHN-HUFF.com. That's all for today, everyone. Until next time, keep your wits about you, and remember, good things happen when you put yourself out there. Bye for now. I got 3 cats trying to break into my studio.